YouTube channel. Please let us know if you would like us to pause the recording at any point in today's meeting, or if after the fact you said something that you wanted to maybe not have in the recording, let us know and we can edit it before we post it. For those interested in following the council, ongoing updates including listening session recordings and listening session summary documents are available at the California Treatment Healing Council Updates blog at catreatmenthealing.com. You can also get updates for events by following the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Additional details, including meeting dates, agendas, and background information are available at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. Our next meeting will take place in June up in the Shasta and Laxton area. More details will be shared on the CTHC updates blog as they're available. And if you'd like to assist in planning that meeting, or there are any topics that you think should be covered, please reach out to Loretta, who is running around the room right now. I'd like to now remind everyone that in joining us here today, you agree to adhere to the Council's principles for respectful engagement, which I'll summarize for you in a moment. A copy of the principles is available for your use and review at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. Refusal to adhere to these principles, which apply to all participants, including governing council members, staff, and community members, whether present or not, may result in your removal from today's meeting. If you feel at any time that you need to step out, or you feel that you may be in need of assistance, please find one of our team and we'll help you get some air. In order to create a space where participants feel welcome, respected, and able to speak comfortably, we'll uphold the following principles in all meetings of the council. And we ask that you all work towards sharing in their stewardship. If you're a participant, we ask that you engage in the work of the council and with others in an open and respectful way. Engage in behaviors that will make others feel welcome. Take care of your emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being, and seek support as you need it. Finally, I'd like to remind attendees that as we work through today's discussions, this process is necessarily open to all Californians, but we ask that those who are here as allies ensure that they please respect the space and voice of California Native participants, particularly elders in this process. For those members of the press in attendance or watching this after the fact, we ask that you engage with this process with deference to the Native experience, and that you commit to obtaining consent and final review from the Native peoples you hear from today. We don't want this to be an extractive process, and we hope that you'll assist us in creating a safe space that is open, transparent, and welcome to all. So I'm first going to have our council members present introduce themselves, and then I'm also going to hand it off to Loretta to add a couple more logistics, or do you want to do that first and then we'll hand it to council members?
So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Loretta Miranda. I'm a descendant of the Morongo Band of Mission Indians in Southern California. Currently serve as Deputy Tribal Affairs Secretary. Been with the office for about 3 years now, which is wild. But you will see that I will be taking photos throughout our meeting today, and yes, unfortunately it has a little clicking noise. And so I tend to take a lot during the introductions, and then I'll calm down a bit. If you do not want us to use your photo, please just let me know, and I'll make sure that that's good. Thank you. So we do not have a traditional healer per se with us today. Usually with our meetings, we like to have someone there to kind of do grounding exercises, but our amazing partner, California Consortium for Urban Indian Health, with Virginia Hendrick, just provided some medicine for us. And so at the casino, there is a no burn policy. I had a little note outside with the sage, but if you do need it, please just go outside. Feel free to just take the time and the space that you need. And I'm also available if you want to just go take a walk. I'm a decent listener, and so I'm happy to do so. Thank you.
I'm going to have our governing council members who are present also introduce themselves at this time.
Open Weekentoish, welcome everyone. Meawe Joan Harper. I'm a member of the council, and I came today from Sebastopol, California. And I want to thank you all for being here and participating. I want to make sure you feel welcome, and we're here to listen and to learn from you. Come on, Ish.
Mishistu Uketekarak Isaac Horkis. I am currently serving as the chair for my tribe, the Kakuntaruk Band of the Loni Costa Indians of the Big Sur Rancheria. wife says, say amen after that. She was like, that's a mouthful. So that's kind of how I always lighten the road. I want to thank our hosts, and I know the chairwoman isn't with us right now, but thank you for hosting the council. Thank you for hosting the prior meeting as well. I know that it takes a lot to commit to do that. I want to thank each and every one that's here to share today, whether you share, whether you listen. Being here is an act of, I say, opening and walking through the door. As we heal, we have to recognize that the door is opening for us to be able to do that. And just being here, making that choice to be here, whether you choose to share or not, you've already taken that first step. So I want to say thank you, because that is a huge step to take. I wanted to also, I know we'll probably get to close out, but safe journeys home for everyone as well, just in case I have to take off before we get to close. But again, thank you for coming. It's an honor to be here to serve on the council, to listen, and to carry your voices forward. Truly.
Thank you. Just acknowledging that the vice chairwoman is in the room. She doesn't want to say anything yet though, so we'll let her just chill. And chairwoman is going to come back in a little bit as well to provide some testimony for the tribe. So at this time, I'm going to give a quick overview of the council and what it is, what this is, and then what we'll do, as we always do, is we have everybody in the room introduce themselves to the group. At that time, you can either just introduce yourself and kind of not say anything, or you can share whatever you want at that time. If you introduce yourself and you want to share it later, let us know. But really, we do this so that everybody kind of knows who's here, why you're here, what you're bringing to this group. So the Truth and Healing Council is a California Native-led process. It was created under an executive order issued by Governor Gavin Newsom in 2019. We're almost at the 5th year anniversary of that executive order, where Governor Newsom apologized for the atrocities committed by early Californians and the state against California Native people, and for the massive dispossession of lands, of lifeways, of culture that continue to today. In that executive order, he also called for creation of a Truth and Healing Council, which would clarify the historical record from the perspective of California Native people, and then call for remedial actions that the state and partners can take to start working toward healing. Understanding that necessarily this is going to be an iterative process, and that, you know, as we work through it, there's going to be renewed recommendations as we start making things better. There's going to be more things that we see are problems. And so this process isn't intended to be kind of a one and done type of thing. It's intended to be something that continues and iterates and grows as we make progress. So this process is consultation informed, it's community driven, and we have quarterly meetings that take place over several days in certain regions where we really highlight what happens in those regions. For example, Bloody Island in Lake County, and we really highlight the histories and the unique experiences of the Native people there, and also the unique challenges that are ongoing as a result of that history, in an effort to address those, or start to address those issues. We also have regional hearings that happen about every month, except for the months that we have quarterly meetings. And today that's what we're having here today, where we're trying to learn about what is the local experience, what would this tribe, the people from this area, really want the council to know as it begins to think about recommendations. The council itself is overseen by a governing council of 12 Native people from throughout the state that were nominated through a consultation process, plus 4 alternates from throughout the state of non-federally recognized and federally recognized Native peoples. But it's not meant to be the proxy for Native people. This process is driven by all descendants of the genocide here, and so really want to make sure that you understand that your voice is a meaningful piece of this process. The governing council basically makes the direction of what needs to happen, what kind of subcommittees need to happen, what issues are under examination, and will ultimately vet and sign off on the final report that they're producing. We also have Jason McCannell here that helps us with our research. He's currently undertaking a process of unearthing original indentured documents throughout all of the counties. These are held in different county offices, so he's already discovered quite a few and maybe able to report out to you today. But it's also in the process of, as he's creating this kind of new set of primary source, it's not new, it's, unearthing old sets of materials. How should that be handled? Who should have access to that? What kind of protection should there be around these sensitive materials? And how do we go about working with the tribes where these people may have come from? So we have research. We're about to enter into a partnership to kind of build out that report, so we'll keep you posted on that. And again, all of our meetings are recorded, and we have kind of aggregated a lot of the feedback that you've all given us up to date, or to date. The council has also created subcommittees which are working on the discrete issues of people who have certain specific focus. So for example, status and identity, because we have a large number of disenrolled or non-federally recognized people throughout the state, we want to make sure that there is some attention put onto the fact that there's going to need to be different solutions for people who don't have the benefit of federal recognition or the status of being a member of a federally recognized tribe. There's also the Elders Subcommittee, the Youth Subcommittee, the Persons with Disabilities Subcommittee, Education Subcommittee, and all of these subcommittees basically have an area of focus which needs to be explained based on the unique history here, but then also will contribute to an overlay of all of the issue areas under examination of the council. So for example, we're talking about Native lifeways. How are elders impacted by this in a way that's different from generally Native people? Is it more challenging to access places of traditional gathering, for example? Is it more challenging, or are elders seeing where the places that they've been gathering are now not places they can gather because of different, property and climate issues? So the council itself will issue a final report next year with drafts kind of coming out throughout the early part of the year. We've made the decision to drop the final report on the anniversary of the 175th anniversary of the state of California. We think it'll have more impact that way, and that's next September. And so are kind of thinking about how to roll that out in concert with the documentary that's also kind of capturing this process. The report will have both your voices reflected in it, but also tied to some of the primary materials that you've been asking us to bring up, so that we can have this fuller narrative of Native policy driven by Native voices and addressing it from the perspective of Native people. And then also the recommendations will come out as well, which will be both short-term recommendations, like this could literally happen tomorrow, which there will be fewer of those, because if it can, then we probably have already started doing it. But then also long-term recommendations, like in a year when we're not in a major budget deficit, what is the first thing we need to be funding, and why? And here's how it's linked to this historical issue. So that's a basic overview. Loretta, do you have anything you want to add? Okay. So at this time, I'm gonna hand it off to whoever feels like taking the microphone. But again, what we do now is we introduce ourselves, and if there's anything that you wanted to share with us, share with the council, or that you've been thinking about, you can do so at this time.
Oh, and there's snacks over there if people get hungry.
I just figured while Christina's kind introduction was still fresh in people's minds, I would take the mic and remind y'all, I'm Jason McHale. I work at California State Parks in the Director's Office, and spending most of my time lately with the council staff, putting together all the research elements and the writing elements and the different elements from the community that need to come together to create a really robust final report. I wanted to mention, since a lot of you were at the hearing of the Commission on Hate earlier, that I also work on place names, both at the state and the federal level. At California State Parks, I'm on the re-examining our past initiative, which, one of the things that I do is I manage our place name changes within the system, which is actually, now that we're aware of it and conscious and have people working on it like me, it's almost like a part-time job. We have about 40 of these places that are currently, under consideration or in the process of having their names changed. It's very complicated. There's different jurisdictions that need to act in different, very specific ways to make it really happen. And then, as you've seen earlier today, sometimes it doesn't happen completely. Private businesses will retain old names that are derogatory. And since 2022, I've served on the advisory committee on reconciliation and place names at the federal level. And I really want to bring that up because we have our third in-person meeting in Rapid City, South Dakota next month. And we're bringing forward some, not only recommendations of derogatory names like the SQ word that should be removed from the map in the same way by Secretary's order, but also a recommendation for policy changes at the U.S. Board on Geographical Names that we think would be beneficial for this process. And one of the things that I have decided to bring forward is that native names should be favored by the Board on Geographic Names. The efforts to remove, the California Council on Geographic Names recently heard a case where a settler family wanted to remove a native name from a feature. And I think that should probably just be barred by policy. Another thing that I've run into is that certain characters that people use to render their languages are only permitted on tribal lands. And I would like that to be expanded so that any Unicode character that's being used for interglottal stops or something like that in your language can be used on all lands within the United States. I think that's all I wanted to say, but it's just very much on my mind from the last hearing that a lot of us sat in here. So I just wanted to bring it up, and you can come to me and get my business card if you have anything you want to talk to me about place names. Thank you.
Hope I didn't turn that off. It's still on. Good. Okay. Hi, I'm James Armento. I'm chef's descent from Northern California, but I work here at Shingle Springs, so I'm here I'm here with Shingle Springs, but always happy to talk about anything. I guess a lot of things on my mind with everything you just said there, because I know that there's lots of issues with the SQ name, but I've noticed recently, actually we're looking for stuff on behalf of Shingle Springs, and we looked around the area, and there were actually other names that were circling that entire area where the streets were named as court, and then it would be our court, and then it progressively got worse. So it was like this whole, I don't know why I mentioned it, it's partially because of that, but there's just like a whole institution of names that are gonna have to be reevaluated, so it's not just this one space, it's all of these things. So I'm very interested just to kind of hear more about that. Very interested in the conversation about probably now just documents, that's really interesting. There's more documents coming up for communities, having them involved and being involved in that process. I'm gonna stop talking because I'm just gonna jabber on, so I'm just gonna go through this.
We're okay with jammering.
You don't want that.
Shani Sudley, Morningstar Valley, Katigay, Hajimami, Vischi. My name is Morningstar Valley, and my tribe is Pitt River up in northeastern California. I left some flyers here on the counter behind me for some upcoming events that we're holding to advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous peoples, and so feel free to Colorado Fire. There's MMIP focus groups and a City Hall event at the City Hall of San Francisco being held next week. So if you're able to attend, we definitely welcome your participation. And we also have flyers for ONA that always promoting their survey. So I'll stop there.
Thank you for plugging the flyer.
Sasa Elliot, Vicky Yamka Kong Calvin Hedrick, Sila Ma'a, Hopno Ma'a, Hitolita Ma'a. I'm Calvin Hedrick, Mountain Mighty person. From actually Plymouth County, Madison County, so I look forward to next week or your next meeting. But I am a community organizer with the California Native Vote Project, and I run a program called The Fifth Direction, where we work with Native American youth. And at the California Native Vote Project, we are actively training young Native people to be community organizers, to go out into communities, into their community, and find those things in the community that are an issue, and change those things, and giving voice really to something that my grandparents asked, that we learn the language and teach the people the language of professors and lawyers and business people and politicians. And so it's definitely the work that I love doing, and I think it's really important, especially with youth-led campaigns to, as I talked about in the other room, to kind of work towards changing curriculum in our public schools so that people are taught the truth. So I'll talk a little more, but I'll pass this on.
Ayakui, Nakna, Virginia Hedrick, Shayame Wachak, Highlands, Virginia. I'm a member of the Yurok tribe and the executive director of the California Consortium for Urban Indian Health. And we are formally contracted to support the California Truth and Healing Council. And usually we do have a traditional healer or a licensed clinician on site to support folks. So as Loretta mentioned, there is a table here with medicines, and there's a small bag if you want to put, it is traditional tobacco, there's cedar and an angelica root, and you can make a mix of that if you want, or just take what you need. And if you feel uncomfortable or you just need to be grounded in this space, you can do that while other folks are talking and just kind of smell the medicines. I also brought some essential oils that are sort of labeled there that can help bring you back into the space as well. And then Loretta and I are here and happy to step out with folks if you need a moment. Yeah, I'm just really honored to be here. And this is like one of my most beautiful, favorite places to be. My staff held a retreat here in the fall, and it's like so stunning, this view. So for you guys on this side of the room, it's just like, it's absolutely gorgeous. So thank you for having us.
Hi, I'm Joshua Barney. I'm enrolled with the Kaluk tribe, but I've been living in Chicago for a number of years, and I just moved back here, so I'm re-engaging in the community.
Hi, my name is Laura Galvin. I'm the chair of the Nissan Collective and a descendant of the Hill Nisenan, which is our lands from El Dorado down to Plymouth and around. We're very thankful to be here for the meeting and for having it hosted here, and look forward to a good talk.
I'm Michelle Johnson, Miwok, Pitt River, Linton, born and raised here in our lands, and happy to be here, and came to speak on behalf of some elders that couldn't be here.
Hi, I'm Teresa, and this is my mom, Michelle. And same, born and raised in Loretta County, Miwok, Pitt River. We don't know much about our area up there, so we're thinking about joining you guys there as well. Mom took us out of here when I was about 15. We moved to Southern Oregon, so we've had our home there, about 40 miles inside of the Oregon border for about 30 years now. So for some of us, we had to leave El Dorado County altogether. after our relatives got locked up, different things like that, you know, to try to get one that might follow the right path, you know. And so, we removed ourselves, from the area, and we've kind of watched, you know, over the years as we've watched a lot of, strife and, jealousy, discontent, you know, and different things, a lot of, fractions, a lot of, things going down in this area, and so we missed a lot of that. You know, we went and got educated and got good jobs, and I think eventually the land kind of calls you back, and the ancestors call you back. And so, while we've participated in Native activities in Oregon all this time, I'm a drummer, I'm a singer, and I carry our family drum, call it grinding rock. You know, we've been blessed and privileged to be able to live there with some of our family and have our Miwok people come up into that area. And for a long time, you know, we stayed away from here. Every time we come down, it was a problem, you know. Sometimes it was like 5 problems at one time, you know. So one time we came and 5 problems at one time, and you know, we were out of here at the butt crack of dawn the next day. Yeah, and you know, so but we feel things changing, and I've been watching a lot of your stuff, and I really like you, and I really like you, and it feels like, you know, maybe something could happen. And I've got some words from a couple of our elders as well, because they don't get out. A lot of them have given up hope, you know? And so we gotta go and get that from them and then bring it to you here. And because, you know, yeah, they're working in their yard, or they're drinking a beer, or they're doing whatever, but, you know, they go, yeah, we've been to those meetings a lot, you know, stuff like that. So we got a lot of hope, you know, and we're looking at these generations coming up, and we feel things getting further and further away, and it's like, man, you know, we really gotta pull it close. And you know, kind of what got me, you know, just so you know, is some of these fire trainings, you know. So we came down to our meeting 2 years ago at Sly Park, and the CAL FIRE guy comes in and he says, you know, we need you guys, you know, we need you, yeah. You gotta, you know, this and that. It's like, we left that meeting thinking, like, that's weird, you know, like, I've never heard that before. It's really different. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, not only do we want you, but we'll pay you, and we'll give you money, and we'll, you know, it's like, whoa, okay. So my son got in some trouble, and I decided that I'd bring him and my nephew down here to do the chainsaw training and that kind of stuff. And working out there in Ladies Valley, running a chainsaw. It was kind of a perfect combination of my Miwok mom, who was in the fire service for a long time, and my dad, who was a logger and cut down big trees, you know, big redwoods and stuff. And I felt joy, you know, and my cousin kind of seen it, you know, happen. And you know, the last 2 years, like, I basically decided to leave my 25-year career in banking, you know, and take about $6-7 an hour pay cut, so I could come, you know, work with the people. And they're in Ashland, so I'm working for a reforestation company now. And, you know, for the first time, I'm feeling that joy. You know, I'm seeing these young people get out on the land. We're gonna launch Indian Youth Service Corps up there. And I'm a Job Corps graduate myself, you know. Gotta be low income to get into those programs, and I was getting out of whack, and Mom said, you know, it's time to go do something. So, big advocate of that, and that's what it is, you know. Some of us are just like seeing things that we've never seen before, and or we've seen it, but it didn't really mean anything to us, you know. And it's like, I don't know why I didn't ask those questions, you know, different things like that. So, so we're doing exactly what you said, showing up, you know. the Padilla family hasn't shown up in El Dorado County in a good way. And so that is what we are here to do. Thank you.
Hello, y'all. My name's Wesley Yielding. You are on Padilla as well. Just want to say thank you guys for everything you guys are doing. Thank you, Governor Gavin Newsom, for allowing this kind of thing to happen. I'm trying to learn, step through the door, like you said. So, a lot of work.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Tayaba. I am the vice chair for Shingle Springs, and so welcome to Shingle Springs. This is actually my home where I actually grew up. And just listening to what you've had to say kind of reminded me of like this setting of being here in El Dorado County 40 years ago, and really what that was like. Because it was hard, and we primarily live in a non-native county. We considered it a rich county, and so it was very hard being poor and just surviving. I, of course, went to all of the schools here, and just being very outnumbered and just around different people who just had a totally different advantage than I did. And so it was really hard growing up in this county because our numbers are just extremely low. And I think that's part of just my drive to kind of like, at one point, leave this place because it was a hard place to grow up. We were very much profiled in this county. We still are. But at the time when I was growing up here, I was with my siblings, and I just remember like going, just trying to go to the grocery store. If you guys know my brother John Tayaba, he was literally, the police knew who my brother was. And it was only because it was the color of his skin. And I've never seen anybody get pulled over on a bike except for my brother. I mean, he just couldn't really escape that here. None of us could. And so I understand what you guys are talking about. This was a rough place to come out of. This is my first time attending a Truth and Healing meeting. I've always kind of wondered, like, what does this thing do? How does it work? So I'm learning, and now I know you have a YouTube channel, so I will definitely go back and review some things. Because I'm really not sure what healing means coming from the state. And so that's really kind of my question and how it pertains to what the tribe is doing today and now. Because for us, we've come such a long way. And, just very quickly, the history, our original villages are, in Sacramento, and so they removed us here. That's why we're located here in Shingle Springs. And it's taken us 40 years to get to a point where we can go back to our village sites. And we've been so lucky to actually purchase back one of our original villages. But the question now is really, we're at the water now, but what is our role there now? And when we talk about healing, what does that mean for tribal people in water and our waterways? So I'm really unsure if this is the right setting to ask that question, but certainly when we talk about healing, I feel like, what does it mean for tribal people and being back on the river? Because as history has shown, we just were never at the table. And like I said, for my tribe, we're barely getting up on our feet to actually have the resources. And it's taken us years to get us to this point. And so when we talk about healing, I just wonder what that actually means when we talk about our waterways. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dalvin Baciano. I am Miwok descendant, and I'm also on the Identity and Status Subcommittee.
Hi everybody, my name is Dustin Murray. I was born and raised here on my dad's Rancheria. I'm a member of the Shingle Springs Band of Miwok Indians, and it was my first time also attending it, like Vice Chair Tayaba was saying. So I appreciate everything that you guys are doing, and I think about my dad and my grandfather and the experiences that they've had in this life, and I think that it affected them so much being a tribal person that they can't even contextualize it because they were never given the tools to understand their life circumstances. So being able to kind of have a greater awareness, even if they're never going to get to that level, and help understand where they came from, it's just been impactful for me, and I carry it with me always with the work I do for the tribe, and working with Chairwoman Quaylar. And like my mom, she's from a tribe up in Oregon, and obviously she lives down here in Cali with us, and I think about all my cousins from there, and what it's like for them to live so far away from their lands, but still experience so much disparity. It's been crazy. Anyway.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bevila Blossoming Bear. Please feel free to call me V in a pinch. I want to extend my gratitude to Chairwoman Quayla and the Shingle Springs Tribe for hosting this space, and to the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs. I serve as the Tribal Liaison for the California Interagency Council on Homelessness, and I'm here to listen and learn. Thank you.
Santamana, Winawana Kanima, Cache, Leticia Aguilar. I just said in my Pomo language, hello friends and relatives. My name is Leticia Aguilar, and my tribe is Canoleville Pomo Nation. I was born and raised in Sacramento, and I'm the CEO of Native Sister Circle, a local nonprofit. We serve young girls, and we really immerse ourselves in the community. Really, we're rooted in Sacramento, and we provide opportunities for our youth to heal, to empower, to share their culture in a safe place, but also give them opportunities to go outside of their area too and get connected to different various tribes throughout, let's say, even the state and beyond. We've been able to be fortunate enough to take our youth beyond California and connect with other tribes. And so when I think about healing, for me, I think about my grandmother. She came here when she was 3, and I was born and raised in Sacramento. My grandmother, she was, as long as I can remember, she was a single mother with 6 children, and the stories say that she was, she really worked really hard, and she moved her family into a neighborhood, and they were one of the first colored people in the area. And so growing up, my mom, she shared stories with me that she would ride her bike, and the white people, they would spit on them, they would pull their braids. And so my grandmother taught her girls, she had 5 girls, 1 boy, she taught them to fight at a young age. And I remember a story that they shared, and they said that one time the Romeo Whip was on their lawn, and at that time my mom and her sisters must have been a little older, because the story goes, my grandma said, "You guys better get off my lawn or I'm gonna let my girls go." And just thinking about that, and me growing up as a young teen in an urban area in the neighborhood, our moms taught us to survive through being able to defend ourselves as well. And so there was a lot of things that were generational within our families. And these things really, I would say, did help us survive, but it was kind of like a bittersweet because now I don't teach my kids violence. I don't promote it in any way. But, just thinking back, the way that my grandmother raised us, we know all of our ways. We know what to do as Native people and not to do. We had stories that my grandma would share. We knew we were Native, but we were told that we knew we're Native, no one else has to know that we're Native. We know what we are. And so I think my grandmother had that ideology because of her survival story and how she became successful as a school teacher. And she used the word high society, and she used to say that a lot. And she thought of herself as, I can remember her, she always had her hair pinned up, and she would get her nails done, and she liked to shop at like Nordstrom's. And thinking about her being a single mother in Sacramento, working really hard. And so as one of the grandkids, we also grew up in my grandmother's house. And through that generational teachings of survival and violence, and something happened along the way. And then comes addiction and alcoholism, and all of these societal things that impacted our people. And in that generation, I would just say it was like my mom, right, not too long ago. And those things really shaped us to be raised by my grandmother. And so I would say it's very common for Native communities, having our grandmothers be a big part and be really influential of raising our kids, because my grandmother also played a big part in raising my children. And throughout that, being able to see my grandmother interact with my kids, she also opened up to them more so than she did with us. So we always would say, her kids got it the worst. They got the switches and all of that. We got yelled at, and then the great grandkids had it like the best. Yeah, they did no wrong. They got all the hot Cheetos and candy. And so my son, she would speak the language to him, and I'm just looking like, Grandma, really? And so to see my grandmother come back around full circle before she passed through COVID, was really empowering, and take her around big time, and she would let me travel. She was like, always have my bag ready, and so it was really important for me to be immersed in, I would say, my work, but also the path that I walk. And part of that as a mother of three is being able to have my children be a part of breaking generational cycles that were passed down. And again, so I feel like it's not too far, like I'm barely, so we're 10 years, worked really hard, overtime, created this wonderful community group to where we can also break cycles in other families, or teach, or empower. And everything that I was taught in the education system, I mean, there's a whole list of things that we can go down the list. I feel like, we're learning, we're also teaching, and we're undoing all at the same time in this generation. And it feels like we're at capacity, right? Like, where's the reparations? Where's the treaties, that we should have had, a long time ago, like we acknowledge, like, sending our kids to school, they're still being teased, like my boys for having long hair. And the trafficking rates in Sacramento are so high, and another reason we go hard for MIW, the bullying. And so we have a long way to go. towards healing. And if you think about how long we've come, we still have a long way to go. And so I have been committed to do this work and really walk this path as a mother, community member, and sis and auntie, because it really does take a village. And so that's just a little bit about my story and why I'm here and why I do everything.
Hatso, Deonde Giti don't say, Mary Thompson, Deonde Gitanya. I said, hello, it's a beautiful day, relatives. My name's Mary Thompson. I'm not from California. I'm originally from Oklahoma. I'm a Kiowa from Oklahoma, but I've been here in California for 30-something years. My family teases me when I go home and say, you're a California girl now. You know, I'm on the board of directors of the Native Sister Circle. And as Leticia shared with y'all, we work with our young women that are 12 to 24. And I was hoping that maybe at some point that those young relatives would sit in the room, because they're the ones that are going to be carrying on all of this and stuff. So I'm hoping at some point, that would happen for them and stuff, because they're going to be making the decisions for us, in the future and stuff. And so I just want to thank you all for allowing me to come and be a part of this, just to listen and learn what I can, and working with our young people. They have a lot of things going on, so we all have to do our best to help them, whatever that may be. So for us, it's more of a preventive part that we do with our young people, with our young girls, because they do, and especially our young boys too, they have a lot of stuff going on. I always say the pandemic really did a number on our young people, and stuff. And now we're seeing it as a result of that. We're seeing all the things that are happening with them, especially the mental health piece of it, and stuff. And so, that anxiety and that depression is real for them, and some of them don't even know what that is or why they're going through that. So it's like having to learn that and try to help them with that the best way we know how. And then, like Leticia said, that the trafficking and all of the stuff that happens with that, and then the biggest thing is trying to graduate. A lot of our young people are falling through the cracks and not being able to graduate and stuff, so I'm just hoping that, we can learn from that and be able to share that with our young people, and for me here, we're working with our young people, become that auntie, right? That auntie for them and stuff, and extending that to other young people of saying, auntie's gonna be here and I'll do the best that I can to help you. I was born and raised with my own people in our traditional ways, and so it's always a great thing to come and learn and just listen and be around other California natives and listen to what they have to share. I worked for Agua Caliente for a number of years and got to learn their culture, and it was a beautiful thing. So I just want to say again, thank you for allowing me to just sit here and share space with you all.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Regina Cuellar. I'm currently the chairwoman of the Shingle Springs Family Miwok Indians, but I'm also just a Miwok woman, East Mountain woman, and I just kind of want to talk a little bit, I guess, about just being a person of color, living in El Dorado County. I wasn't raised here. I grew up in another area where we were the majority. So coming up here, when I did finally come up here and move up here, I found out real quick that we were the minority here, and just going to stores, getting those looks, it was really apparent that there was a lot of racial issues up here in this county, and I think I also, when my kids started going to school here, I really started noticing that they would pick on my kids because of where they were from. They knew they were tribal members from Shingle Springs. If you had a certain last name, they automatically deemed you as, oh, you're from that family. Oh, you're bad, and they would point them out. They would point them out, like my cousin said and my vice chair said, they would point them out and they would make a point to watch them more. And if they were going to the restaurant, they had to follow them. And it was a job trying to get my kids graduated from high school, just making sure that they weren't being picked on for the color of their skin and being from where they were from, Shingle Springs. So I learned the hard way, and it was really difficult for my kids, you know, coming from an area where they were the majority, and then not knowing that they were poor or different, right? Because everybody around us was the same, you know. And when we come up to a very white county, it's very obvious, you know. They throw it in your face, and the looks and the stares, and it was very hard to bite my tongue, you know. Again, kind of like what Lucia said, you know, you grow up, and my mom always said, you know, you defend yourself, and you don't let anybody, you know, you always stand up for yourself. Don't let anybody bully you. My mom was very independent and strong woman, and she still is today. And so she would tell me that. So my first reaction was like, oh, you know, don't be looking at me. But I had to learn to bite my tongue, you know, and I didn't want that for my kids. But my kids were like, what's going on? Why are they looking at us like that? And they never really felt that until they definitely moved up here. And it was a struggle for school, and like I could just imagine my cousins when they were younger going to school here, and all the racial bias that they had, and the words that they would tell them and spit on them, and just the signs that they posted all over the place. So again, this is my first time being here, and I'm just here to learn as well and listen. I think the most important thing in order to heal is to listen and understand and respect everybody. But it is, again, I have hope that it will get better, and I think all of us sitting here, that's a testament to our resiliency as a people, and just wanting better for our kids. I know I want better for my children. I want better for each and every one of you guys that are here, and for my grandkids that I have not yet to meet. And I think that's why I do the work I do, and I sit on the Commission of the State of Haiti, and not only for my community, but for all the communities, to respect each other. Respect each other. We may not all agree, but I think respect goes a long way. So just thank you guys for allowing me to be here and learning from all of you guys. Thank you.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Cynthia Che, and I'm a daughter of immigrants from Korea, and I'm a guest of Chairwoman Cuellar, and dedicated my whole life to doing immigrant rights work, civil rights work, anti-discrimination work, and anti-violence, including gender-based violence work. Originally, I was just gonna end it there, but I felt really inspired to share two things. One is I do believe that there is a racial reckoning happening, which includes violence by our own government. And I think that's really important to recognize. And so part of our work is about like, government has a role to play because of the harm that it's committed. And about 15 years ago, I had the privilege of organizing an excursion in southern Colorado that brought together indigenous leaders and Asian American leaders to go to two sites, Sand Creek, where of course many of you know about the massacre by the militia of Arapaho and Cheyenne people, and then about an hour away was Amachi, which is the location of the Japanese incarceration camps, and it was really important to bring our communities together to talk about, less than, just under 80 years apart, these acts happened, and so also by the hands of our government. And so I just want to take this moment to say that I had a mentor once say that our public education system may not recognize our histories, but we need to keep pushing. But it's up to us to create these spaces so that we can tell our stories and so that we make sure that it doesn't happen again. So I just really applaud this effort, and I just feel so honored to be part of it.
Thank you all. Any other introductions? Okay. At
At this time, if anyone wanted to elaborate on anything they had talked about, or if you prepared testimony, please feel free.
Again, my name is Michelle. I am not Shingle Spring Band. We are the El Dorado Miwok, El Dorado Rancheria. Many years ago, when they got moved here, we were right over there. And my grandfather's lands were the res. I mean, we weren't formally recognized, but it was the reservation. And we grew up not knowing much, except for we were the troublemakers, growing up feeling too dark, too ugly, the girls were born, all that stuff. And so when you speak about healing, I've seen some healing. I see healing when we connect with the land. I have a cousin who worked many years, 10, 12 years, with the water conservation folks on a piece of land called Ladies Valley. And not only is this place super sacred to her, her grandmother was born on the river, not far from this property. And so building that relationship over the 10 years, she formed a nonprofit, and the Cultural Waterway was born. And just last year, the water conservation folks signed that over to the nonprofit. So for now, we have a land that we can touch, and that is where the healing is. It is in our land, it is in the water, it is in our cultural beliefs, and the praying, the music, all that brings health and healing. And we didn't have that. We were so hungry for it, and now we're getting it. And I see people's lives changing. I see my daughter's life changing. That she could go touch the land and get that passion that would make you choose money over, she's passionate about the land, about the people, about getting our kids connected, because that's where the healing is. The healing is in knowing your culture. When my grandmother lived right here where 50 is, it went right over her house, eminent domain. Talk about the government coming in and taking your stuff. You gotta move. That's not right. And she died very shortly after. She was done. She was sick then, and she died. Not knowing my grandmother really spurred me to, want my grandkids to know me if something were to happen to me. And so I wrote a book, which I would love to give you a copy of if you're looking for that. But at the very beginning, it starts with, the gold rush. The gold rush changed everything here. We lived here peacefully for millennia, and danced on this land. So now we have this place to go, and I see healing. But with my grandsons, with myself, when I was trying to put myself through school, I'm sorry, you're not federally recognized. You can't apply for this scholarship. You can't go to that school. You can't have these things because that was taken from us. And I think when you kill a people's culture, you try to squash that out, that's where the alcoholism and the drugs and all this addiction and pain comes from. And so to heal that, we have to, that's what the healing is getting that back. The connection to our culture, to our lands, to our people, to people. And being able to get what we need. So federal recognition to our band, which is the El Dorado Rancheria, we need recognition. We cannot get our kids good things because we don't have the federal okay to go to this school or whatever. But I do see healing happening, and that's how it happens. We need land. We need to have access to water. That's my personal belief. When you take a person's culture, that's when you fill it with other things, yes. Anyhow, my auntie, who I would like to speak for, has been, she wrote a little thing and she said, I can't go, I'm too sick. Oh, Florence Maker. And her mother was Myrtle Schuster, and my mother's cousin, and they were Daniels, and those base names from here. And so she wrote and she said, I have been going to Indian meeting and all, like she was one of the ones that was like, we gotta be meeting, we gotta be doing stuff. And for 60 plus years, and we still don't have recognition, and she's been saying for the past 20, before I die, I want to be recognized. Not just the BIA saying you've got a number, you're a California Indian, but recognize us federally so we can have access to the stuff that helps make us heal. Being able to get our medicine and to gather and feathers and for our regalia. That's her message, is that before I die, I want this recognition for the people. So, I pass that along to her.
You got it. You got it, Mark. All these stories have been inspiring. Thank you for all of that. I didn't say much to you. So, my father's family is Hillnessum from this area. His mother is from Plymouth, and prior to that, all El Dorado County up here. We all know the gold story and what happened to displace so many of our people. And many of our group, we're kind of all from the same tribal area, have been urbanized. One person who's been here most of the time is my cousin Russ. His family has. They've been everywhere, I'm just saying now.
My grandma's been here her whole life. Everybody.
Yeah.
We were the only ones that got out.
But a similar story here and here with the trauma that took place after gold, being displaced, the murders that happened, $5 a scalp on heads of our people for gold. And we still remain unrecognized. We are very well documented in the Smithsonian. We're very, very well documented to historians, archaeologists. I'm currently mapping our ancestral territory. And I hear that the state is thinking of getting rid of certifying ancestral territory. So that is another healing piece to know, where did my people walk? What villages did they have? What did they gather? Where are the waterways? Where were the roundhouses? Because that is well documented throughout history for us. So one thing I would like to request, if there's anybody on this panel, is if anybody can verify that the California Heritage Commission is going to be eliminating certifying ancestral territories. I'm working on state parks or something. They are?
She knows that.
Yeah. And that's a very important piece, because I honestly don't believe we're going to see a lot of federal recognition in our lifetime, if you look at the history of this. I have my own personal opinions about federal recognition, and it's a complicated thing. We were federally recognized, and now we're not. He knows more of the story than I do. But the trauma that's taken place, the multiple levels of displacement, first by the state, and then other situations. We talked about healing in the waterways. I would welcome conversations with some complications that we have, that I think several people here are aware of, and how we can heal that. Because I see my family hurting. Sorry, I didn't grow up here. I was urbanized in the Bay Area. And when I met most of my family several years ago and saw the amount of struggle that was going on, all I wanted to do was try to uplift them. But it continues, and it should not. It should not continue. We were federally recognized. We are great people. We have a large nation here. And there's lots of complications going on with our land and other things. But as Native people, I would hope that we all come together and come up with a solution. You know? I think that's healing. That would be healing. Put our own input into that. Thank you for listening.
I'm Koya. I'm 12. I'm my Iraqi crew. And I think for healing, I like history and like history classes from like not necessarily like, well, yeah, elementary school, like 4th grade education, to be told more from like the perspective of California natives.
My name is Pedro Hedrick. 14. I tried to learn Mario and Crew.
We're glad you're here. We're so glad. Thanks for everything.
My name is Sequoia, and I'm 10, and I'm young in Taiwan. My name is Charlie.
Is Spider-Man your favorite?
Government should provide free chips.
I'm 7 years old.
Bit baby. All right. No such thing as free archery students.
Last time we saw them, I think someone got a boo-boo.
Exactly.
Any other testimony?
You know, I was just gonna say, I just got here asking, just saying, asking Spirit to bring in the young people and Lord, and the Spirit texted them.
Call text.
Thank you. Yeah, I do a lot of work with a lot of different tribal communities, and I do a lot of work also with non-tribal communities who work with our tribal people, doing like cultural humility presentations. And I think that it's, and I'm sure you guys have probably heard this in other parts of the state, I think it is really important for us to have a better understanding of how we came to be in this place. A long time ago, I spent my whole life to trying to say, how did we come to be in this place? And when I think about this place right here, the understanding I think that so much of our community doesn't really fully understand is, what is Rancheria? How did people come to live here? This wasn't just wherever we see a Rancheria, it wasn't just there was a village there and they made it a Rancheria, right? Because we know that Sacramento is a huge city and there were villages all over. In the place where I live, I've done some research and I've looked at those Nisenan villages right close to where I live. And how then is there no place for them there? And so really, full transparency, part of my thesis in grad school was talking about rancherias and development of rancherias. And so understanding those 18 unratified treaties and how we came to be in these places in rancherias. And I think that it's so often that I get people, talking to, or I have to explain, well, just the people of Shingle Springs are from all over, but at that time, because of those 18 unratified treaties, there were, quote unquote, homeless Indians in California that needed a place, right? And so this place was purchased for them. And so there are going to be people who are from here, who are from United Auburn, who are from, you know, every community around here, who might be brothers, sisters, cousins, close, but it was because that's where they came, right? And so I really would love to see more information, like really good quality information about that, because I've heard native people stand up in front of a crowd and say, oh, a rancheria is just, you know, it's a smaller version of a reservation. It's like nothing like that. And so I think that there needs to be more of that information. And, you know, when we're talking about the gold rush in California, and we talk about the 18 ratified treaties, the gold rush in California was more than just gold. The reason that those treaties were never ratified is if you've driven from Redding to Los Angeles, there were reservations supposed to be set up all along the way. And that gold is still producing a lot of gold, and that is the vegetables that are grown here in the state of California that continue to feed the United States, the fruits that are grown here in California. That's the gold rush. It was that fertile land, exactly. Because when you go and you see where people are now, like think about my work, I've done work in a lot of different communities, but in like Cold Springs Rancheria, if you've ever driven in there, and there are probably like 20 or 30 places like this. But when you've driven in there, it's rocks on the side of the hill. And so when I think about some of those places in fertile California and how they were displaced to there, that's what that is. And you know, same thing here. So I really think that having that understanding, having the understanding of why tribes were terminated, why rancheries were terminated, and then the difficulty in trying to get restored, I think is something even just for us. Yes, we'd like for everybody to understand that. I think sometimes it's, you know, we need to have a really deep understanding. When I'm talking to young people, every month when we have our community or youth organizer meetings, we do a piece on like political, historical, like how did we come to be here? How is every single policy that came to California an assimilation policy? And how often they worked, but we can look around this room and just say how often they didn't work, right? There are so many times when I refer to my ancestors as outlaws. Because when you go up to Plumas County and you look at where those places were at first contact, where our roundhouses were, you understand that those were abandoned or were destroyed. And then you look at, when I was driven around years ago by a family member, and they said, oh, well, after that place was destroyed, then they moved the dance area up there on the hill. And then later they moved it even further up the hill. And that was because our dances were legal. But thank goodness for the outlaws who were part of our family who kept doing them even though, right? And so I just think it's so often I'm trying to like make sure that our young people have that knowledge, that no public school in California is teaching them, so that they have a deeper understanding and they have, you know, a deeper understanding of this place where we are and of that place where they are when they're going to school. So yeah, I think that we, and I don't know how much you've already heard about this, or I'm sure a lot, yeah, I can see why you're saying. But I think about that a lot, especially just being here in this place, so just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I had a strange conversation the other day that a lot of this conversation is making me think about of these wealthy, older Caucasian businessmen from Tuolumne who were like, well, how many more casinos are gonna come up? And like, well, you know, haven't we done enough for tribes? And yeah, and like, well, would they like to just swap with like our land in the city? Like that's not Indian land also. And so it's like the whole misconception of what even like what happened, where people are from, where people were pushed to, how people survived, how we're all connected. Like a lot of this process, we're even meeting cousins that we didn't know we had from different tribes. And you know, I think something I brought up in the meeting next door is like, we're doing some really big, not big enough, but big in terms of the state never does anything, moves to kind of push toward land restoration, push toward Native people having access, ownership, all of that, of their ancestral lands, and it is that same thing of like, the pushback is like, well, are they just gonna make it like 10 casinos, which is like ridiculous. And then the pushback is like, well, don't you already have land? And it's like, that's ridiculous. Like, if you know the history there, you know, like people don't choose to go live on rocks. So, and then even the comment from Vice Chair about like, what does healing mean? Like, if most of us are actually landlocked, there's no water, there's no resources, there's no infrastructure, like even in previous time infrastructure, much less modern broadband, you know, if you wanted that. I think that's a really good point, and I'm trying to think about how.
It'd be a great subcommittee project. To at least start.
Yeah. Well, and we've got a geographer, I think, in the room too, because part of what every geographer I meet, I ask them how they're thinking about how colonized geography in itself is, and how we map things, and like how we name things, and how we even view the world. How we refer to things that, you know, in the global south as being like, you know, it's just like your whole, how you think about things changes based on how it's put on paper and presents in your brain. So maybe we can think a little bit about that as being part of this report as well.
Only like 1,000 steps space.
Just to add a piece to that, we have a long way to go when it comes to our Native populations, our children, students being recognized in the classrooms. There's a lot of stories my kids are telling me that their peers don't even think the natives exist, X, Y, Z, right? And they're also having to say the Pledge of Allegiance, in which, you know, our kids can opt out of that. But I would like to see if they're also doing Pledge of Allegiance on top of that, provide acknowledgements in classrooms. And I think that can help to bring recognition to the area that they're in, but also that there's Native students in the classroom, and it's not just past tense. And so if we can bring land acknowledgements into the classroom, that can be a powerful step forward into, you know, opening that door to really supporting our Native students and even, you know, our Native communities. So yeah, I just want to add that.
Thank you. I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico for a couple of weeks, and it started getting all of these really urgent messages and emails about this legislation that was for this cycle. It's 3183, and it was being put forward by Assemblyman Alvarez out of Costa Mesa, and this is the third attempt that has been made in terms of legislative genocide and changing the definition of a California Indian tribe. And the language stated that tribe means California Indian tribe, as that term is used in the act to be federally recognized, or that is actively seeking federal recognition. And there are only 3 tribes currently in California that are actively seeking federal recognition. And so when those efforts are still continuing to be made, as of now, it took a lot of late night organizing and a lot of volunteer efforts and energy to contact Alvarez's office, to contact the Natural Resources Committee, to mobilize, to get some strong opposition, but this is still continuing. So how do we heal? To Vice Chairman Coleman's comment, how do we heal when these attempts of genocide are still being made against us? And in terms of Leticia's comment about land acknowledgement. You know, I got to the point where we were being contacted by a number of agencies and asked to provide land acknowledgements, but why is there an acknowledgement when there's not action behind it? And so, actually there's a poem I'm gonna read really quickly, if that's okay. That kind of speaks to, is that
Just do take 1 second while I change the battery.
Absolutely.
Very grassroots over here with our equipment and it just doesn't finish it.
Oh, I'm grassroots all the way to school, okay.
Okay, we're back on.
So I'm just gonna offer this in no way to be offensive, but just for us to, you know, the next time that land acknowledgements are made, and I think definitely that is a great starting point, you know, for students, for education. I have children between the ages of 10 to 20, and it's been an ongoing process, and they had, just as was mentioned, they had a really hard time when I was living back in my tribal homeland, attending school and being the only children with long hair, and just all of those challenges that they faced. I'm gonna share this. Land acknowledgement. The jails are filled with indigenous bodies. We suffer an epidemic of institutionalized racism and legalized anti-homelessness. Statistically, 1 in 2 indigenous people living in here face arrest. Land acknowledgement. Will those without shelter freeze to death? Empty buildings, empty houses. Land acknowledgement. The desecration of the sacred, the spiritual violation of our ways of being is directly connected to the suffering of our relatives on the streets. Land acknowledgement. Desecration is not possible without dehumanization. What we do to the land and the mountains, we do to ourselves. Land acknowledgement. Before 1492, no one was homeless on these lands. It is stolen, occupied lands. The ghostly nightmare of colonial violence still haunts these streets and flows with trash, blood, spit, and the refuse of brutal ongoing history cutting through the city. It runs through the sewers and is pumped and spread all over the sacred cultures that you sell in your gift shops and books and acknowledge before city council meetings and on so-called Indigenous Peoples Day. You spit in the face of indigenous existence. No land acknowledgement will ever be enough to heal the open wounds of ongoing colonial occupation. How do we heal while our hearts are still being cut open? Amidst this trauma, amidst this ongoing desecration, how does the land acknowledge us? We can't even recognize ourselves, our power, and we dance and beg for scraps of recognition. To acknowledge the land is also to recognize our mutual responsibility to resist, acknowledge your responsibility, acknowledge accountability, and act. Tonight, before you sleep, acknowledge the violence of your dreams that floods these streets and desecrates the sacred. So that was from a friend of mine that passed away at the end of the year, where there's a process of spewing wastewater, where wastewater was being used on a sacred mountain that is sacred to 13 indigenous tribes in the Southwest. And on this holy mountain, the city is using the reclaimed wastewater in an artificial snowmaking process, and so we fought that for a number of years. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Morningstar. That was powerful. And I want to flag that in in this process, I think that might have been the first time we've heard about doing land acknowledgements, and I think in the classroom, that's a nice way of getting people to know and think about it. But I will say, I think we'd like to hear more whether that's something that people even want as part of a truth and healing process. We don't recommend it at the state because we don't want state agencies, like we say, if you're gonna do it, you have to do it right, but we also don't want every single state agency and department to then waste all of their time and energy on a land acknowledgement and not actually doing the actual work. And so while we think it's of value, we also don't think it's worth wasting people's capacity, energy on something that isn't gonna actually materially change things for Indian country. So I don't think we need to talk about that now, but because it came up, you know, I don't, like, we're not gonna put things in that report and in the recommendations that people don't think are valuable. Other countries do, like welcome to country, they view it as a big piece of their practices, and when they see other countries and other subnational governments that don't do it, they think it's offensive to the indigenous people. But I think it's, you know, as noted, it's complicated, and just putting that out there for some thought, because I think there's gonna be some different ideas about, like, whether it's no completely sometimes, or whether it's yes only if it's attached to some sort of remedial action, like a, you know, a tax or something like that. Any other thoughts or comments? We're about 10 after 5:30, and I realize we did start a bit late, but so if folks have more they want to add, feel free to do that. But I also know it's Saturday, and a lot of you have been at this all day.
I have a couple from my
okay, great.
that I want to make sure to give you. Just want to make sure we didn't talk all my time either. So my mom and I did reach out, you know, like I was saying, and we know a lot of our elders won't travel, don't drive, haven't driven in 10 years, you know, and that kind of thing. And so this is from my great aunt, great aunt Laurel, and so she says her name right here, so I'll just read what she wrote, if that's okay. I will never get over how people treated me because I was Laurel Lee Padilla, one of those Indians. I will never know what or who I could have been. I wonder that still at 75 years old. I need my people to know, her family, the place on Sand Ridge where I was born and wandered those hills where my people walked with no fear. Why were we the only people treated like this tribe? I'm very proud of our young people for not giving up and fighting for us all to get sacred places back that was taken from us. It's only the right thing to do. And she signed it, hey man, the gold rush is over. I like that. She said that on the phone to me too. You know, but we were comparing notes a little bit. You know, it's like this would have been in the 50s, 60s. You know, when Mom was in school in the 70s, and you know, just like Melissa was saying back here, I didn't really. I've always been like more important in my own head or whatever. And so I thought we were, you know, okay, we live in a trailer, whatever, don't matter, you know. We're cool people, you know, so of course everybody, I had this boy I liked, you know, in middle school, and he was popular and stuff like that, so I decided I was like, see if his sister will invite me over, you know, and it was like, she always acted, like, okay to me, you know, so I thought, well, so you're saying there might be a chance, right? And as soon as the, like, question got asked, you know, I saw something totally different that I had never seen before, you know. And I realized, like, you know, for the first time in like my own life that there was this prejudice that still existed, you know. My brother is much darker than me, much bigger than me.
And so he was the one that got tested, you know, and I mean, I'm sure him and my cousins fighting, you know, all those kids in school probably didn't help out at all, you know, when your kids came over here. They'd already set that standard, you know, and stuff, and so, we went to all the schools here too, Herbert Green, Charles Brown, we didn't go to any of them.
You know that school set on sacred ground.
Yeah, we didn't know it was built on that, and so later finding these things out, you know, it's like, I told my mom, well, no wonder I got expelled and he got suspended on the same day. You know, my mom didn't even have a good running car and she had to come get us on the same day, you know, and I got kicked out, and I went to Indian Creek and got a bus, oh, there's my cousin. It's a miracle that I graduated from high school, and many people in the Padilla family did not do that. I had to go to Job Corps, you know, to get that done, and mom sent me off to do that, you know, and stuff, so. I'm doing land acknowledgements right now in my work, in my job, because we're dealing with federal monies, you know. And so it's an interesting thing, you know, when they started asking me to do this, I felt good about it in that area because I'd spent so much time in that area, and I have friends that's their ancestral territories, and I've spent a long time in their lives, and, you know, so of course I've reached out to my friend, how do you feel about me doing land acknowledgements in this area, you know, and stuff like that. Good, okay, good, you know. But I did my research, you know, and when I do those land acknowledgements, I try to make them mean something, you know? I try to take it past that land acknowledgement. It's so funny that what you read was from way far away from here when it could have applied to anything around here too, you know? And so I feel like it's a real touchy subject, but we got a lot of federal money running around, and we got a lot of Indian people working with federal monies, whether it's through firefighting, you know, whether it's through whatever, BLM, you know, projects and stuff like that. And so they're required to do these things, okay? So maybe what we can do as tribal people is try to guide these folks, you know, and try to come up with the best we can do, you know, in order to truly honor those ancestors. And then, like, what I try to do is, you know, I acknowledge everyone I know of, and then I ask for forgiveness in anyone I don't know about or that I forgot, you know? Because, like, we don't know everything, obviously, you know, trying to clarify the record, like, well, shoot, we're willing to give you everything we have, but who's gonna put it all together? It's a lot of work, you know? And the message that my grandma, Shirley Mendoza Padilla, wanted to put across is that, you know, she's gonna be 89. She's the matriarch of our family. You know, I'm so glad to hear about your kids getting to know their grandma, you know. Unfortunately, that wasn't my story. I loved my grandma. I loved being there. I love that house on Golden Lane that she's still at. You know, she's lived there for 60 plus years. She's walked from this area, and it's like we worry, what's gonna happen with that house? What's gonna, you know, because what they did by not ratifying the treaties, there's Treaty J, right, President? So Treaty J is what our people should have been covered under. It's kind of the North Fork of the Consumnes River. And what they did is they took it from a tribal system and they turned it into individual ownership, which then pitted family member against family member, right? You know, we've all seen it in every culture. You know, someone passes away, all of a sudden the family explodes. I want this, that's my name's on that, right? That jewelry's mine. She said one thing one time, you know, it's caused so much strife, you know, and it's just like, at some point, I think a lot of us just want to say, here you go, agencies, here's everything we have, you put it together, and you tell us, you know, you tell us what the history is, you know, put that into your database. Thank goodness you got really smart people, you know, working, and I'm so glad you're looking at original documents, because I'll tell you, the ones I want to look at, I can't get. I gotta take time off work, I gotta go make an appointment,
I gotta drive 6-7 hours, I gotta have a parking permit, a goddamn degree, and time and money, you know? And I only have some of those things, you know what I'm saying? So, we want it, you know, but I think, you know, right here, you know, talking in this land acknowledgement, you know, it's a very complicated situation, right, relatives? But we appreciate what's been done. Just to say for the record, we have 2 family members in treatment right now. They all helped get there, and we appreciate it very much, very much. My grandmother said, you'll bring medication out to her house. I appreciate that very much. I would say for me and my mom and my grandma and us personally, well, some of the factions of the Fidel family likely feel different. We appreciate what you've been able to do. We appreciate the fact that the government put us in many different situations, you know. And here's the thing is, you know, if they pit us against each other, then we ain't looking at them, right? So if we just keep this fight right here against Shingle and Loretta, right, you know, you're not our enemy, you know. You never have been and you never will be, okay? So we'll set the record straight on that. Because I think that's important to say right here, right now, looking out here at this view right there. But, you know, obviously, I think anybody who knows sense and reason knows it's tough, you know? That's a beautiful view right there. God, I wish I could enjoy that more, you know what I mean? And it hurts, but I don't blame you, you know what I'm saying? And I hope that some of the truth and healing and reconciliation will be, you know, helping to correct those things and making recommendations and acknowledging the ancestral people and making every effort, you know. I think that you guys have done a good job in setting the record straight, you know, to an extent. How can we build better relations? You know, we got a lot of family members that need work and different things, and I know that we haven't always put ourselves out there the best, but you know, you've never talked to us, you know, and so.
There needs to be a bigger, larger version.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, you know, and the loudest ones, and the craziest ones, and you know, that's not us. That doesn't represent every member, you know. And so, I hope you'll take into consideration the land acknowledgement, you know, situation, and would welcome any, you know, you got one of our relatives that work for you, we appreciate that. You know, but yeah, you know, that's from me to you. I know, I've been reading about this, I know a lot of history, you know, and I think that's one of the biggest issues that is in this area right now. But you know, I think about it as I drive, you know, it's like I was grabbing that, you know, and you're looking at it, you know, it's tough. It's the first time I've been here, so I appreciate you having us, and so that's all I got to say. But I think you hear what our relatives are saying, and they do want some of those privileges and federal right, whatever. I don't know, make some state tribe, you know. The fact that we sit here and talk so easily about how many people are unrecognized is absolutely crazy to me. So just find a different solution. You know, I only, you know, nobody's gonna give me their list. I don't know who we can enroll. I don't know. There's probably 3 tribes my brother can enroll in. You know, but which branch? I don't know. You know, so yeah, it'd be nice to have some better records so that our kids know, and that, you know, I mean, I could walk past Laura on the street, I'd never know her, that's my blood relative right there, you know? I mean, you know, Wes, I'd probably pick up, but I, you know, a lot of us don't know each other, we're not around each other.
And that was all 11 years.
No, but like I said, you know, it wasn't then, it was then, you know, and so, I feel like as Indian people, they're always having us look somewhere else, just past the target, and we miss it, and, you know, and there's a common, enemy there, so, thank you all so much, I appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate that, Teresa, I really do. Again, this is my first time meeting you as well, and I think we all know the issues, but But, you know, and it's nice to know that I don't blame you, and I don't blame what's happened. We were a part of the system that put us here, right? We made good on what we've done, or what we have, and, you know, again, like I said, but we have experienced hate from certain family, you know, so I do wanna say that, and we don't blame them. We don't push hate on anybody, you know, and we get along with everybody. We want everybody to feel welcome, especially when they're here on our lands. You know, we hold no animosity towards anybody. That's what we hire people who we feel are gonna do a great job. No, nothing personal, you know, and we welcome. You know, we've had Loretta, child that dances with us, you know, we welcome that. So, you know, again, I think there is a bigger, more of a discussion that definitely needs to happen. So no, I appreciate you, Teresa, being here and saying that, and all of you guys that are here today. It takes a lot to have those discussions, and those are just heavy discussions, but you know what? Again, none of my relatives were to blame, none of your relatives were to blame. You know, we're simply put here, it's just educating, everybody and knowing the history, you know. So again, I appreciate your comments, and look forward to having more discussions with you guys.
We're all open to it though.
Thank you, Chair. Would anyone else like to say anything else before we close out?
Well, I was gonna give you a final.
Oh, you're closing this. You're closing us.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I just wanted to come back to what Vice Chair said earlier when we were passing the mic around, asking, what is healing, right? What is healing that the state thinks that that's going to be? I would hope that it's what as nations we think it should be. That being said, I would encourage everyone that is here, everyone that will listen to the recording later, to share your story, to come forward, share your family's experience, share your tribal experience, what's been passed down to you. I had an elder tell me once, say, and I'm gonna clean up the language, but why the heck am I sharing this if it's not for you to share it with someone else, so that it lives, so that it continues on? I know at some point I want to provide my own testimony to the council, but as a council member, I feel it's important for me to hear everybody else, to provide the space for everyone else to be able to share their experiences so it's captured. Hearing some of the dialogue today, and hearing you say healing is being with the land, right? To find those mechanisms. As a young adult, I remember going with my family, because my ancestral territory is within a state park. And to hear the superintendent of the park at that particular time say, no native people ever lived here, I don't know what you're talking about, bye. But here we are, years later, now I'm having conversations with parks, now I'm engaged with parks. As a tribal leader for my tribe, to be able to get over that hurdle, that's an accomplishment in its own. But to find a way and a mechanism to sustain that as a non-fed tribe for generations, for my kids, for my grandkids yet to come, for those future generations. I think that's something that as nations, as leaders, we have to come together to find that solution, what that might look like. I don't see it happening overnight. There are mechanisms if we look at the realm in which we are dealt with, because we are engaging with the state of California, we're not engaging with the US.
Yeah.
So I think holding and having realistic expectations of what we might be able to see and what we might be able to achieve is obviously helpful. But I just want to encourage the Vice Chair and Chairwoman, you know, and I said it earlier, and I don't think you were in the room at the time, but doors open, right? This is door that has been opened for us as Native people to express how we want to see things move forward. And I say it that way because I don't think it's gonna be like this. It's gonna take a while for someone to hear it, to digest it, and then to act upon it. And that's the resiliency of our people. That's what my ancestors have shared with me. That just because we walk into a room and say something, it's not gonna happen overnight. We gotta come back to the room. The next generation has to come back to the room. And when we ask, we're gonna ask with a smile each time. We're gonna say thank you. Thank you for caring for our land. Thank you for taking care of our ancestors. It's not their responsibility, it's ours. But unfortunately, sometimes the ownership and a different way of thinking, that's the thought process. But still walking into that room and having a good feeling that you're gonna have a good conversation, leaving it in a good way. That's the resiliency of our people that we come in every single time. So I just wanted to share that. I hope that everyone continues to engage with the council, to share your thoughts, to encourage your community, your elders, whether it's someone delivering that, whether it's an email or a letter. I think that when we stand together in solidarity and say those common things that we look at, that's what we're going to see come forward. That's my hope. That's my dream. And I'll just leave it there.
Thank you. You're reminding me too, we now have our iPads ready. People want to record anything, and yeah, they're actually ready.
It was a long time. For the meeting, you mean?
We have iPads ready for people who want to record their oral histories, and so, but also just members of the community as kind of first-person testimony. We can do it a couple different ways, where I think what we'll probably do for the first couple of runs is bring them with us to the next few convenings. And what we did at Graydon is we actually had something like that set up in a side room where if people wanted to go in and record, they could. If you have elders who can't travel, we can also figure out how to lend out some iPads and give you some prompts. Or if you have an elders program for your tribe, we can also work with whoever runs that, because we know that sometimes your elders don't want to talk to us, or they don't want to talk to you. So, yeah. And so we're mindful too that people might want to share some stuff that they want to keep within the tribe, and we're cool with that. If you want to just film everything and keep it with the tribe, you can do that. If you want to film one version for your tribe and one version that comes to the state, because it will be public record, we can do that. So we just want to be as flexible as possible. We know that a lot of you, we've lost a lot of elders. And we know that time is ticking, and so if you want to have that for your own safekeeping or for your own families, we want to be able to help you do that to the extent that we can. Also, remember to fill out the AG questionnaire. My tribe just sent it out to our listserv, so we're working on that too, and I think there might be a report coming out next year too. MMIP report coming out of the AG's office, so it's really important that you all engage with that. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming and for participating, adding your voices. These are important perspectives. No two of these meetings are the same. And so what you've offered today is something unique, and I really appreciate that. And I know that the work of the council will do our best to reflect all that we can. Thank you.
Thank you. A couple more logistics, and then while I'm doing logistics, if anybody wants to close us out in a good way, think about that. And now my brain just stopped. Next quarterly meeting is in June. Not June? Well, our next hearing is in June in Shasta, and,
Do you want me to check? No. You have to say the things you need to say while I remember what I said.
So we have updated our flyers outside. We just updated them last night, so you have the very most recent versions for the dates. We have decided to reschedule our May quarterly meeting. We were initially going to be in the Eastern Sierra region, but we had some conflicts with the large event.
Tell them what it was, because they'll understand.
Mule days.
I
had no idea that was a thing. But
We just like no hotel rooms, and we were just not.
No hotel rooms, a lot of traffic, so we really wanted to be conscious of like when we pick our meeting dates, and so we decided to reschedule that until August. And so the month of August, right now, we tentatively have 2 quarterly meetings, which is a little odd, but since we rescheduled, we will be in the Eastern Sierra region, I believe it is August 2nd and 3rd, and then we'll be in the Santa Barbara, San Luis Obispo region a little bit later in the month.
So you'll get a flavor of both.
the thing that I was remembering is also the model curriculum for Native American Studies is supposed to be out next year. There's 2 processes going on. There's a Northern California process that's going through Humboldt, but also for like all of the North counties. There's a Southern California process that's going through San Diego Office of Education. So if you're interested in engaging in either of those processes, you can reach out to Loretta and we can connect you with them. I think that's it for our announcements. If anybody wants to volunteer to close us out.
I will. In a good way.
We
were
laughed
joking
because
about
we've been
that.
joking about following everything with in a good way. Oh, great spirits, spirits of the 4 directions, all our relations and the good spirits of the earth. Creator, thank you for this circle of fine folks that have come here with good intentions in a good way. Thank you for letting us be a part of it. Thank you for the Shingle Springs Tribe for hosting us and for extending their hand always to us. We'd like to wish everyone a safe trip home, that you watch over them and their families and keep them in a good way. Oh.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for joining us. And there might be a couple snacks and a couple drinks if folks want to grab one.